Yo, 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 and welcome back to Creeps and Crimes
Podcast.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Morgan. Happy Thursday and happy episode 251.
251. Okay, I wrote down something that I can't remember what I wrote down necessarily, but I remember thinking, oh, I need to talk about this. And I need to get in a full conversation about it.
Not the Notes app.
Let's go to the Notes app and see what we've got here. Oh, this is funny. War back in the 1700s with bands playing. Okay, let me give you the background on this. So the other night, me and Logan were like really wanting to watch a movie, but we didn't want like an action movie, and we wanted something that was long and would keep us for a little bit, but like actually had some truth into it, so we would actually be like bought in.
Yeah.
So the only common ground him and I have in like a movie like that, because his version that's like sci-fi or fantasy, and I can't pay attention that long unless it's like a long series that, you know, you just need to know for social purposes.
Yeah.
And
Like
pop
Game
culture.
of Thrones.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not even watching Game of Thrones, but
Oh, actually, I haven't either. Well, I've seen episodes.
yeah, I've seen certain episodes. I've seen any episode that has Pedro Pascal in it. But that was it. So we ended up watching, I think it's called The Patriot. It's got Mel Gibson in it. It's an older movie. Anyways, it's about the American Revolutionary War. Okay. So like our common ground is always history within that. And we can do historical fiction. We can do, you know, based on true events, whatever. Okay. So he was like, have you ever seen The Patriot? And I was like, I think if I have, I watched it in school and I haven't seen it since. So, and I probably wasn't paying attention if we watched it in school. So we watched The Patriot. And they were like depicting obviously like what happened during the American Revolutionary War. They were doing Gentleman's War, and Gentleman's War is absolutely psychotic. No wonder people lived to be 30 back then, because they would line up in straight lines, walk up with their guns that took 35 minutes to load, mind you, and then they would have like their commander, like main bro, on the top of the hill, okay, like overseeing all of this, and they would just throw cannonballs to the middle of the lines, hitting their own guys also, like just no regard for anything. But then like they were showing like the Americans, well, the soon-to-be Americans, like lining up. And first off, they look like just a bunch of fucking fools. They literally look like a bunch of David Crockett's lined up, just like a bunch of rednecks, because they obviously like had really shittily pieced together uniforms compared to British, who's pulling up with the red coats with like their gold things on it, and their fucking hats and everything. And I'm like, did we need all of this? Like, genuinely, did we need to come out in petticoats and stand here with your boots, with your riding boots on, with your hunter boots on, and like get in a line, and then they would go fucking face to face essentially and take turns firing at each other, just sticking in the line. So you're getting shot for sure. You're 100% getting shot.
Yeah, why did they do that?
Why are they doing that?
Like at that point, just have a vote.
And also, meanwhile, as this is all going on, they have bands.
I did see a TikTok like maybe a week or two ago, and it was like, imagine you're in the war and you're just the drummer,
literally,
and you die.
Yeah, like you're just there, and
I didn't know what it meant, but I just
they're
like kept
sitting
scrolling.
there just drumming like as all this is going on, playing the trumpet, doing their things. I'm getting overstimulated watching this. Like, can you shut the fuck up with your drum for like 5 fucking seconds? Because I'm about to get shot right now, and the last thing I want to hear is you terrified drumming. Okay, like they're, you know, they're shaking.
And there's also no aim, so they're not even treated like, the band members aren't treated like presses today.
No,
because like there is no scope, there's no aim.
No,
you're just shooting the
and their bullets were dead ass just melted down, fucking like silver.
Yeah,
and just melting it down over a fire, and like that was as many as you got. Like, if you, good luck, I hope you find some. When you get shot, take it out and put it in your pocket, because dead ass, that's what you had to do. And then they would just like fire these giant cannonballs. The cannonballs weren't even going that fast, but they'd bounce on the ground and they'd take out your whole fucking leg, and like then it's gone.
Did they blow up?
No, they didn't blow up. They just knocked you out like a bowling ball.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought cannonballs at first, they had no gunpowder or anything in them. They were just fucking
bowling balls that would hit you and like go through you.
Yeah.
Because it was going at like a higher speed than...
So when did cannonballs turn into like bombs?
I guess after America, because they were not doing
now,
that.
right? Or they were at a certain point where they would fire them and they would like explode.
Yeah.
Like on castle walls and stuff.
Yeah, but that was it.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I was sitting there watching it. I was like, I knew this.
And also, like, why if that was me on the front line, I'm sorry, I'd be running back.
No,
to the
literally.
woods by the trees.
Well,
See it, guys.
the commanders or like the generals or whatever would be like, hey, let's let the front lines get 2 shots in. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. So 1 shot, pack, shake. Let me get my bullet out of my purse. Oh my God, there's so much shit in my purse. And then you put it down and you pack it back down there because you have to clean it in between. And by the time you get all set up to start shooting again, you've already been shot.
Yeah.
So like
5 times.
You're hoping that the dude, no, not even that, because it's only one. And they're just standing directly across from each other. And once everyone was dead on that line, the next line would step up.
No, that's
and
crazy.
They were like 30 yards back from them too.
That's so fucking unfortunate for whoever's on the front line.
Right. And then once the line broke, you could charge because it was gentleman's warfare. So like you had to break the line before you could charge. Who made these rules?
No, really. It's
they
like
just wanted
chess.
everyone to die.
Why are they playing chess?
Why are you playing chess with human lives? So then like once that line fell or broke and they like, you know, ran back or whatever, you could charge forward. Because, and that's why they had those giant knives on the front of the guns, because like you had a better shot at just stabbing everyone than you had shooting them at that point in time. Like you need to bring a knife to a gunfight back then. It wasn't the reversal of what it is today. So they would just like go up and then they would stab the people. But then also in the midst of this, while you're holding your rifle that takes 35 minutes to reload, you're in a sword fight with someone. And then they'd bring in their horses because the British had a bunch of horses and they had dogs too. So then like all the dogs would come in, but then the dogs, you just whistle and the dogs would run back away. Like they weren't
just like hang some meat on your
They literally weren't that big, that stressed. But like people, they had horses, but horses were so rare that you had like a division. It was kind of like the Air Force, but like the horse force. And the horse force would only come in once like they were charging at each other. So they would take their swords and shit and just like fucking be beheading people.
Dude, how did we win that war?
Well, literally is because we figured out that we knew that they knew we were weak as fuck. So then we started using that against them. So we would break the line and run over the hill. And when they'd come across the hill, we'd be lined up with loaded guns, like 4 rows of loaded guns. So once they charge up over us, we'd have the guns. Finally, we don't have to wait 35 minutes to load these bitches. And they would get them to, you know, kind of retreat.
So you had your
bit.
Sacrifices.
Yeah, like they dead ass had sacrifices.
That's crazy.
And these people would get like shot and stabbed and shit, and it would be like your top guys. So you'd be like, we got to get them back. But because it's gentlemen's, like they kind of were respectful of like getting everyone back. And then also you weren't allowed to like really touch officers back then because again, it's gentlemen's. So like you don't touch officers. No, I'm fucking 100% going for the officer who's making these calls. Like, what do you mean? Like this is not kind, peace, love, and like we got
like,
manners.
fucking
this is fucking war, babe. Like I don't know what you thought.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I was just watching it and the whole time I was like, men are so stupid. Like men are so stupid. The gentlemen's 100%. This is not a ladies type of war. This is not, no woman would ever have her name
Never
attached to
forget
this.
our dance battle war that we would have.
Oh my God. Let me tell you something.
That was season 1 throwback.
Yeah, dance battle. Like
get them up there.
I mean, that's why they had the drums. They were hoping that they would just switch over to a dance battle really quickly.
They should have.
I just honestly, if the drums were beside me while I'm sitting there, knowing 100% I'm about to get shot, I'd be like, can you shut
But it always is crazy when you see in like movies and stuff how like you'll have the lines and then just like 200 yards back is all the tents with the nurses. Yeah. And like they respect that. Yeah, they don't go in there and like kill them all.
And you didn't kill any reverends that were there. Like you just didn't do that. That was like really, you tried not to like touch any like
there was literal battlefields. You couldn't go beyond that.
Yeah. They'd be like, don't do this.
That's
don't
crazy.
go there. But yet they would go on people's properties and just like burn down their houses for no reason. And it's like, how gentleman is that?
Yeah,
you know?
that's not very gentleman of you.
Yeah. And
that's
then they'd
crazy.
be like, well, what I'm about to do is gonna, you know, I'm never gonna be allowed back in England again. And it was like, oh, you think everyone's gonna fucking know about it? Like, you think someone's gonna get this on video for sure? Yeah, 100%.
And also, they're like, England,
just kill all the
what
witnesses.
are you even doing over here?
Yeah, George,
turn
was
the
it
ships
King
around.
George?
You're losing half the people via ships across the Atlantic.
Literally, they're all dying because they have scurvy. Also, on top of that, like, just please get a grip. And then they did some dirty ass shit, which people don't talk about enough, which is the fact that they told all the Native Americans, like, hey, you come fight for us. We'll get all these bitches off your land and we'll give it back to you.
Damn.
Yeah. And don't even get me fucking started on the 5 shillings and a mule, please. Like, don't even, because that was a part of the movie. I cried the whole time they talked about it because I was like, that's not even fucking true to this day.
When was that movie? When did that come out? Like 2008 or something.
I don't know. It was. I think I've
seen it.
You definitely have. I watched it in school. I remember watching it in school. It was sad as fuck. Heath Ledger's in it. 2000.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely would have.
Well, I'm sorry that this entire intro was me talking about gentlemen's warfare and how fucking stupid it was.
let me tell you guys about my weekend. So I went.
Don't forget too. We have another whole intro.
I know, and a pipe and hot goss today, maybe, possibly. I know. That's why I'm going to talk about my freaking Ollie story. So mad.
I'm so excited to talk about it.
And okay, so my weekend, I went home to Pennsylvania. This is just like true classic, like my family fashion. I get in late. First off, I'm getting all of these alerts. It's like 911 is out of order.
Let's talk about that.
Or not out of order, but like 911 is down.
Outage.
Statewide across Pennsylvania. If you need to dial 911, you need to go to your local emergency, like non-emergency line.
Yeah.
To get through to them. All of the websites were like listing all this shit. And I didn't think anything of it. And then I get home at like 11:30 at night and I'm like, why is the garage door wide open? It's because my dad has the boat hooked up. When my dad leaves super early in the morning to go fishing, because the boat stays in the garage, he'll leave that garage door like cracked open.
Right.
And then have it hooked up. That way he doesn't have to do it in the morning. And then he could just open the garage door and pull the fuck out. So I knew, then I'm like, oh, classic, dad's fishing. And so whatever. And so I get in and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I mean, this feels like The Purge, because now I'm on Pennsylvania TikTok, and PA TikTok was going crazy. They're like, literally, this is The Purge. Like, why would they even make an announcement that it's
I just
down?
saw people that they were like fucking like closing their blinds, like making sure all their doors are locked, putting guns to the side. I'm like, what the fuck?
Because I feel, well, if you think about it, if 911 is down, like that gives criminals room to like be a criminal.
It does.
You know?
And because like, what are you going to do? Sit there and Google the non-emergency line while you're being attacked?
Right. So I'm laying in bed. Taylar ends up texting me at like 12:45 or something. And I answer. She's like, oh shit, I didn't know you were awake. And I was like, well, I'm up because my parents have the garage door open, and our garage door that connects to our house, they literally leave the key on the outside so they can lock it to let the dogs in, because the dogs can open the door. And so I'm like, I'm just laying here thinking that I'm gonna get fucking stabbed.
No, right.
Because full entry access into the house.
They're gonna come get you.
No 911.
No.
I was like, I'm cooked. I was like, well, luckily I only have to live for 2 more hours. My dad's going fishing at 3 a.m. so I should be okay. The garage door should be, the house should be locked after that.
I said she should just stay awake. Like
I was like, I really couldn't sleep at all. And then I wake up and then my mom's like, we're going to the lake. And I'm like, okay, bye everybody.
Bye,
like, love
glad to
seeing
come
ya.
home. Good to see everybody.
Classic. And so anyway, I went and got my hair done, went to the wedding. I got absolutely blacked the fuck out at this wedding. It was
Slay.
I have no idea what I said, what I did, what I looked like.
I'm due for a really good blackout.
When's the last time you think I've done that?
I can't remember.
Like truly, like I had the spins, guys. Like I was laying there and the whole room was like just rotating around me, but I never threw up.
Good.
And then I woke up and my head was pounding and I was like, actually, it isn't that bad.
It isn't that bad. I'm not that scared.
So,
well, you were drinking too, like your gin and tonic. So if you would have had like bubbly in that.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, and then Aaron went golfing. So we know how that went.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to the thing. I'm like, go get me a drink. I'm going to go to the charcuterie board. I'm starving.
Oh, yeah.
I had my hair done. I get up there and he's like, all right. And I see this bright fucking red drink. And I'm like, is that a cranberry vodka? And he was like, yeah. And I was like,
when have I drank a cranberry vodka?
He does this to me at every wedding.
I can't.
He goes and orders cranberry. I'm like, that's my mom's
That's
drink.
literally Beth Ann's drink.
I don't drink that.
Yeah.
I haven't drank. He's like, you did last year. I said, Aaron, I've been drinking gin for like 5 years now. I was so mad at him, guys. And then I'm like, oh, he does it every single time. I'm like, reorder it.
Logan does that to me too. He always brings me cranberry vodka.
I think it's like boys think like that's our drink.
Yeah, well, and I don't mind a cranberry vodka, but only because I like it. If I do order myself one, it's not a cranberry vodka I'm ordering. I'm ordering vodka with soda water and a splash of cranberry juice with 2 limes. I'm not, it's my like dipping the, me getting my like foot in the water.
Yeah.
So I can continue drinking and get rid of the cranberry vodka.
Yeah.
The cranberry out of the vodka.
Yeah, it's way too much when it's a full.
Yeah.
I hate it.
No, because it's just like you're
Like I
drinking
could do like a Red Bull vodka splash of cranberry.
Give me a Red Bull vodka.
A little
every
lime,
time.
period.
Yeah.
However, this is not what it was. I was
That's
so
not
mad
what
at
it
him.
is.
Anyway, I got so drunk. And then our drive home, I fucked myself because I told Aaron on the drive there, I said, you go ahead and drive the most today because I know how Sunday's going to roll around. You're going to be hungover as fuck and I'm going to have to do the brunt of the drive. Well, I was so mad at myself Sunday because I was like, fuck, I signed up for this. I literally made him drive the whole way. Now I have to return the favor.
You did.
And the freaking tunnels were closed every single time we go through Virginia.
What?
I don't know. It was like an accident. It had an hour and a half worth of traffic.
Damn.
Red, standstill. But yeah, so then the drive was even longer than anticipated. And then we got home and Ollie got sprayed by a skunk.
That motherfucker.
I don't even want to talk about it. I want to save it for Patreon.
We'll talk about the skunk, and I'll talk to you about what I was texting Morgan about after midnight when she texted me back. My part will for sure be in next week's episode because we're recording that right after this.
Yeah, we have a little... I'm off today, so this is actually a morning recording.
Yeah, morning recording. We're doing all day.
Yeah, we'll last till about 4.
Yeah, whatever the fuck gets done before, honestly, 3, it's going to go down. Like, are you kidding? At 3, we're going to be like counting the clock. Like, okay, we got to go. We can't do this anymore. Anyways, we'll hit you with it.
If you're driving, throw that shit on cruise control.
If you got a glass, pour that shit up.
And let's get creepy.
Please let it rain, God. I wish it would thunderstorm right now.
Yeah.
Imagine recording this being thunderstorm. I'd have so much more energy.
Me too.
I'd be so happy.
Okay, so I am so excited for this case today.
Okay, what is it?
Because I'm excited because I feel like we haven't had a good little alien story
Ooh.
in a hot minute, and this one has a giant DNA mystery to it.
Oh shit!
So it's gonna be fun. So this is the case of Peter Cowry. Peter Cowry. I'm gonna fuck that up.
Cowry?
It's spelled like it's pronounced Cowry, I think, right? That's what I was saying.
You
Cowry.
said cow.
Cowry. Peter Cowry wasn't your typical alien abductee. Before his encounter that would inevitably define his life, he was this quiet, hardworking man living in suburban Australia. Peter was born in Lebanon, 1964, during a time of political instability. Prior to the Lebanese Civil War, his family, like many others, wanted a safer life elsewhere. And this is when they relocated to Australia in the 70s, along with many other immigrants that were searching for the same thing, freedom from violence. Mm-hmm. Peter's upbringing was defined by this dual identity, Lebanese by heritage, but Australian by upbringing. He learned English, he went to school, he had friends, and he grew up navigating these two cultures. Peter had this strong sense of responsibility to make good on the sacrifices that his parents had made to bring the entire family across the world. So all in all, he was a pretty good kid. He was quiet, he did what he needed to do, he was good. By the early 1990s, Peter was in his late 20s working a physically demanding job in construction and living in the northwestern suburbs of Sydney. He had married, started a family, and lived this quiet life with his wife and their 2 young children. His home was in this residential area and had quiet streets, a big sense of community, and nothing about this environment screamed paranormal or extraterrestrial. Friends and coworkers described Peter as someone who was straightforward, grounded, and pretty private. Our coffees are here.
Okay, then hold on. Let's go get bitches. All right.
Okay.
We got our Dunkins now. Everything in the world is good.
So much better.
So much better.
Okay, so friends and coworkers, they would describe Peter as straightforward, grounded, and private, and he was not the kind of person that you would ever expect to start talking about aliens because he wasn't interested in science fiction. He didn't follow UFO stories. He also didn't drink or use drugs, and he really wasn't chasing any sort of media attention. All of this is important because when Peter eventually did come forward, his story didn't sound like someone spinning this fabricated lie. It sounded like someone who had no idea how to explain what had happened to him, and he didn't particularly want to know what happened to him. It was July 1992, and Peter was 28 years old. He was at home recovering from a head injury that he had sustained from working on the construction site. His wife was out running errands, and the house was quiet, so he decided to go upstairs, lie down, and take a nap. And that's when everything changed. Peter said he woke up suddenly, paralyzed. He couldn't move his arms, his legs, not even his head. He could only move his eyes. This wasn't the first time that he had experienced sleep paralysis, but this time felt different. He said it was like an electric charge in the air. Attention, he said. Then, out of nowhere, he saw two figures standing beside the bed. Both were naked, entirely hairless except for their heads, and completely silent. The one closest to him was extremely tall, possibly 6'6" to 7 feet.
Jeez.
With long, platinum blonde hair, pale skin, and light-colored eyes.
Oh shit, Venetian.
He said her build was athletic and lean, and her facial features were almost too perfect, like symmetrical, sharp, and held a blank expression. The second woman stood a few steps back, watching. She had darker skin, almost olive-toned, and black shoulder-length hair. Her eyes were almond shaped and her cheekbones were really high. Neither of them spoke. He said there was no sound, not even the sound of them breathing. But Peter said he felt something, this kind of telepathic pressure, like thoughts were being pushed at him, though he had no idea what they were and he couldn't make sense of them. Trigger warning here for assault. He then said the blonde woman climbed onto the bed and straddled him. His paralysis persisted and he felt deeply disturbed, not because it was sexual, but because it wasn't. He said it felt clinical, procedural, and extremely detached.
Oh, God.
Then suddenly it ended. Peter regained his movement and the two figures vanished instantly as if he was flipping on a light switch. Peter was drenched in sweat and gasping for air. He jumps out of bed, he ran to the bathroom, and he tried to calm himself down. It had felt real, but he had no idea what to believe. While Peter Cowry's story may seem like an outlier, Australia has a long and often overlooked history of unexplained phenomena. Sound like my dad there. The country's UFO history stretches back centuries. These dreams that Peter had are called Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, and these have been passed down for generations, including references to mysterious sky beings and objects that came from the heavens. These weren't described in the language of aliens, of course, but rather as like spirits or ancestors or things like that. In more recent times, Australia has produced dozens of documented UFO sightings, many of them which remain unexplained. In the 80s and early 90s, when Peter was experiencing his encounters, plural, UFO reporting in Australia was rare. There wasn't this national system for tracking sightings, and most reports were handled by independent researchers or local groups like the UFO Research NSW Network, which we'll talk about here in a second. The Sydney suburbs, where Peter lived, weren't exactly a hotspot for sightings in Australia, not compared to the remote areas where people would see strange lights or UFOs were frequently seen by truckers or the outback farmers. But still, reports did trickle in. However, most went unnoticed by the public, or they were just chalked up to weather balloons, military aircraft, imagination, etc. So when Peter began experiencing strange events, he didn't immediately assume, oh my God, alien.
Right.
Because it wasn't part of his view. At first, he thought he was dealing with stress, maybe even neurological issues, but by the time the 92 encounter happened, he could no longer explain away what he had seen or what he'd felt, because this was not the first time. Peter's first clearly documented UFO-related experience occurred in 1988, 4 years before the infamous bedroom visit. He was in his early 20s at the time, living in Sydney, and had no prior interest in UFOs, aliens, or even paranormal topics. The first encounter is what he refers to as the car encounter. Peter was driving with a friend through a Sydney suburb one evening when they noticed a strange light in the sky. This light appeared to follow their car, hovering silently, matching their speed just right over top of them. It eventually darted away at this impossible speed and disappeared from view. Neither Peter or his friend could explain it, and they were left feeling pretty shaken. But at the time, Peter had believed that this was some military aircraft, and the two of them kind of brushed it off. However, this was something that stuck with him as odd and weird, and would be a hot topic whenever he was with his friend. Like, it was one of those stories that would always pop back up. Remember we were in the car that one time and that strange light was over top of us? After the 88 encounter, Peter began experiencing strange and disturbing episodes during his sleep. These would increase in frequency over the next few years. Some symptoms that he reported was suddenly waking up, unable to move, classic sleep paralysis, sensing a presence in the room even though no one was there, seeing shadowy figures or faint lights just before losing consciousness, and experiencing missing time, where he would lose hours from his day with no memory of what happened. Peter, again, originally thought that these were stress-related or health-related, and he even consulted doctors. But medical tests, sleep studies showed nothing abnormal. He eventually began keeping notes and comparing experiences with others, which led him into contact with Australian UFO researcher Bill Chalker, which we've talked about him before for sure, because I feel like a lot of our UFOs are really in that area.
Yeah, a lot that we've like done like big deep dives on.
Bill says that this is a common trajectory for people that have experienced extraterrestrial. We see it happen time and time again. It's like a build up to an actual encounter. Even documenting in his notes, though, there was no proof of any of this happening until the bedroom incident. Like I said, after the encounter, Peter had ran downstairs to try to calm down, catch his breath, and use the restroom. And that's when he found something.
Oh no.
A long strand of blonde hair wrapped around an incredibly sensitive and private part of his body. It didn't belong to his wife because she had dark hair and he had been alone in this house. So he carefully removed the hair, and he said that like it was not an easy feat. Like it was fucking tight. Wrapped there. Yeah. Placed it in a plastic bag and he stored it away in the back of a drawer. He didn't tell anybody about this, not at first.
Yeah, how are you going to explain that one to your wife?
Yeah, and he didn't even understand why he was keeping it, only that something told him this mattered. And it's also crazy to think that even alien girls shed like us. Like, how many times have you had sex with Logan? And he's like, fuck, dude. Like,
hair's everywhere. Yeah. Sorry.
In most abduction accounts, the experience ends with these fading memories and no evidence. But this one was different. It is actually the only UFO case or alien abduction, abductee encounter case with physical evidence.
Oh, shit.
Because we have this physical object, something that shouldn't have been there under any circumstances, and it made no sense. So what compelled Peter to keep it? Peter would later say that he felt something about the hair was important, even if he couldn't explain why. He believed that the encounter was not random, that it had a purpose, and that this hair, as bizarre as it seemed, might one day help him understand that purpose. For nearly 5 years, this sample sat untouched in Peter's Ziploc bag in his drawer. Then, in the late 1990s, Peter became involved with a small group of Australian researchers who were taking a scientific approach to alien encounter cases. They called themselves the APEG, or the Anomaly Physical Evidence Group, and they wanted to do something nearly no one had done before: test abductee evidence using forensic science. So Peter handed over the hair. What followed was a DNA analysis that would change the entire tone of this case from like an ET encounter to a scientific anomaly.
Oh, shit.
When Peter handed over the hair sample to the APEG, the Anomaly Physical Evidence Group, the researchers didn't expect much. It's not that they had doubted his story, they just understood how difficult, and we see it time and time again in Taylar's cases, how difficult it is to extract usable DNA from a single strand of hair, especially one that had been stored for years in a non-laboratory setting. But this was no ordinary hair. The group enlisted Bill Chalker, one of Australia's leading UFO researchers and an analytical chemist by training, to lead the project. Chalker had long been frustrated by the lack of physical evidence in abduction cases. So when Peter came forward with this preserved strand, he saw a huge opportunity, and a rare opportunity at that. They sent the sample to DNA Solutions, which is a private laboratory in Sydney, to conduct the testing. And they did not tell this company what they were testing for. Like, just like, give us the DNA analysis of this strand of hair.
Yeah.
So this is what they found. First, the hair did contain a root, which meant nuclear DNA could be extracted, the kind that will give insight into an individual's genetic identity, including their maternal and paternal lineages. Once they ran the analysis, the results were shocking. The nuclear DNA showed that the woman, whoever she was biologically human, but her mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down only through the mother's side, belonged to a very rare haplogroup known as haplogroup C.
Okay.
This haplogroup is virtually unheard of in people with European ancestry, especially someone with blonde hair or Caucasian characteristics. Mm-hmm. In fact, haplogroup C is commonly associated with indigenous populations of East Asia, Siberia, Native America, and not Northern or Western Europeans, where that hair type typically occurs. So what they said was something that was deeply inconsistent. In summary, it was a strand of hair from a blonde, European-appearing woman with mitochondrial DNA linked to non-European genetic lines.
Damn.
What the fuck? No one in the team could make sense of it, and there were no signs of contamination. The tests were clean, and the lab, which didn't know the hair's origin, had no reason to falsify or skew these results. They had no idea what they were testing for. They were like, this is what we got. It's kind of invalid, unconclusive, because it makes no sense to us. We've never seen it before. But here are our findings.
Right.
The hair simply shouldn't have existed as it was. To the APEG team, this was evidence of hybridization, which a being that looks entirely human and even ethnically specific, but whose genetic makeup doesn't align with their appearance. According to them, this is common theme in alien abduction lore. Beings that resemble humans, but with subtle, like, off qualities, like perfectly symmetrical faces or, you know, things like that. The concept of these Venetians or Nordic aliens that are tall, pale, blonde, and eerily perfect, and encounters with beings that suggest human alien hybrids created for these unknown purposes. The hair sample, with its impossible DNA profile, remains one of the few pieces of physical evidence linked to an alleged alien encounter. While skeptics point to alternative explanations like contamination or lab error, no one has ever been able to fully debunk the DNA analysis. To this day, Peter still stands by his experiences. He goes on interviews after interviews. Actually, I want to email the guy up and talk to him.
Let's
because he
chit-chat.
seems chill as fuck. He's been on Ancient Aliens. Yeah. Wait.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. But there's this, I don't know, I've probably bitched about it enough on here that you guys know that right now. I currently don't have YouTube TV, and that means I don't have like any live TV, and you guys know I fucking love live TV. But Samsung TVs have like those channels that you can watch. There's one dedicated solely to Ancient Aliens. It plays Ancient Aliens 24/7. I've been turning on every single night. And the day that this man pops up on my screen, I'm going to scream. I'm so excited.
Yeah. He didn't claim to understand it, only knows that it did happen, and that something or someone left behind proof for the first time. And that is Peter Cowry's story. But yeah, no, I want to email the fuck out of him. I need him to be on here and tell me this story. I think, and a lot of people speculate, the largest theory is that it's like a procreation situation. And they were, like he said, it felt clinical. It felt procedural. It did not feel sexual.
Yeah.
Like succubus him, you know?
Okay, so the DNA from the mother, the maternal DNA, was extraterrestrial. So mitochondrial DNA.
Right here, let me go back.
And
so we
then
can break that down.
Yeah, confirm this to me. And the paternal DNA was human DNA.
Biologically human. But the mitochondrial DNA belongs to a very rare group called the haplogroup C.
Yes.
And this group, haplogroup C, is virtually unheard of in people that have European ancestry. And what they're saying is because of her Caucasian characteristics, that DNA doesn't make sense for it to be a long piece of blonde. You know what I mean?
I guess the outlying piece of this is what is it when your body doesn't create melanin, and so you're like
right
albino.
When
you're albino, that's like the only outlier piece of that.
It could be, but
situation.
I also feel like that has a specific like DNA strand that they would be able to pick up on.
Right, but what's really interesting here now, haplogroup is solely maternal DNA. Like that is the X, right? X is female, Y is male, because it's 2X DNA for a woman. Okay, XY for a man. The sex. Haplogroup only refers to your maternal DNA, period, end of story. So I've never done my haplogroup testing. I would really, really like to do it. My cousin has done it before, and I think 23andMe is the only one that offers it, but it also isn't technically 100% accurate.
Yeah.
But it's really, really fucking interesting. I've always wanted to get my haplogroup tested. But anyways, so all you're telling me is that God is a woman.
That's all I'm hearing.
Like, that's all I'm hearing. Like, that's all I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you can tell me.
He did have some stories. Like, and it was like a book or it was his book that he wrote, or maybe he didn't write it, but it's about his story specifically. And I only got like, you know, like the previews. Do you know what I mean? Online. I didn't end up buying it. I would like to. I just didn't have enough time because I was, you know, out of town this weekend. However, in the excerpts that we saw, like there's multiple situations, even as a teenager, like living with his dad and his brothers, where he would go into the sleep paralysis and see like these like shadows running across him and like these like lights and be like, did anyone see that? And everyone's like, no, we didn't see that. So I feel like it was kind of like a stalking situation.
Yeah.
They've probably been doing this for a long time, but he just happened to like gain consciousness.
They've probably been just
during
like,
this situation.
What's it called? Like grooming him essentially. So that way when it happened, he wouldn't be so terrified. He would be like, this is just one of those things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too that they waited to do their big one, their big assault.
Yeah.
When he had a head injury.
Yeah.
So then like it would be explained away.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I mean, if someone has a head injury and they're like, listen, this blonde girl and this brunette girl, they came into my room in the middle of the night and when I was taking a nap, I was home alone. No one saw anything, just me. You'd be like, okay, well, yeah, I'm sure, honey, that you saw that.
Me as a wife, if that happened and I find my husband's like, I had blonde hair wrapped around my dick.
Oh, okay. Now, no,
I would have been like, okay, number one, we're going to the hospital for a RAPE kit.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
If that's what you're telling me.
Right.
Number two, I don't believe you. Like, what do you mean?
Well, like
you woke up with the two naked, beautiful, perfect,
but
symmetrical
what
women.
I'm saying though is like, okay, take the physical evidence, because I doubt he told his wife about the physical evidence.
Right.
If he were to even tell her about that, like with his head injury, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay,
it's
honey.
okay. Well, you probably just had a bad dream. Like, it's okay. Like, you know, you have a concussion. Da 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 da. Like, this is normal. And like, even if he went to a doctor about it, what she said, he'd gone to the doctor multiple fucking times.
Yeah, through all of his sleep paralysis occurrences. Like, and it said like a medical opinion. I would assume he got sleep studies done and stuff like that.
That reminds me of those cases that you talked about. There was like 3 out of like near Stonehenge that you did.
Oh,
you remember that, where it was like the one person had,
and they were drawing, right? They kept
like as a little kid, and then it just one day like they came and they did something. I don't remember what.
Yeah,
the
they really
did.
do be like waiting for their big one.
Yeah, they wait to the perfect time.
Yeah.
To do that,
and they saw a vulnerable moment,
they see like
a
a vulnerable time, and then they attack then, which is really weird, but also like, I don't know, because I feel like if I say this, it'll come off wrong, and I don't want it to, because like obviously like sexual assaults. What's up with you like doing the alien sexual assaults, ghosty?
I don't know. I didn't even. All I saw was a clip of this on Ancient Aliens. Yeah. And so then I went and looked at it, and I didn't know that that's where the hairhead came from.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, fuck, not again, second week in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. Not sure.
Update, it's just Effie in another
It's actually
version.
Effie.
Yeah, she's back.
No, I do think it's crazy. And it's like,
yeah.
I think it's interesting that this is like the DNA and out, like people who I don't know much about DNA. Like we try to know as much as we can, but
we've read as much as we can.
We don't have doctorate degrees in it. We don't study it. These people that are literally like DNA analysts are like, I've never seen, I don't know. Like this makes no sense. So like, that's so fucking interesting.
Is so weird.
And what is it with Australia and UFOs?
Well, it's because it's aliens. Out there, bitch.
You think? Yeah, it's just like,
it's just out there, like down there by itself, you know, for the most part. Like if
they're like, oh, I can blend in with those fucking giant spiders.
Yeah,
and like all the animals they have.
And like I feel like there's probably a lot more UFO activity in the southern hemisphere than gets.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
Well, probably because they know we're not down there in fucking Antarctica. You know,
I think I'm confused on what the southern hemisphere is.
You know, like below the equator. We're above the equator. We're in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, but I don't know though, because I feel like.
But the reason I say that is because it's not being reported as much. Like it wouldn't get reported as much because there's a lot more population in the northern hemisphere than there is in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Which, why is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hold on. I'm pulling up the map.
Peter, if you ever hear this, can you email us at creepsandcrimespodcast@gmail.com? Love to have you on.
The majority of South America, South Africa, Indonesia is at the top of the like right below the equator. Australia's below there, of course, like New Zealand, Tasmania, Antarctica. Yeah, like look, there's so much more population above. Here's the equator, above the equator, like all of Asia, all of Europe, the majority of Africa, all of North America. Look at that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then down here, it's literally just.
So maybe
Australia.
they go after the southern guys because they're like, not a lot of tension on them.
I mean, I feel like we've also had a lot too, like out of South America, like Brazil and
for sure. Africa is huge.
Africa, South Africa specifically too. A lot of places like that. Damn.
Interesting.
What is that at?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, someone do some research on that. that knows how to do that.
Let us know.
Let us know. That was a good one, Morgan. I like that a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it was really interesting to learn about.
And I want to read more about the haplogroup C.
Yeah. Did you get our text?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You just want to do it here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just got a text that can approve this, so we can finally tell you.
Woo! I hope you're still listening.
I know. We hope you're still here, but we have a big announcement. We owe someone on Patreon $10 for this.
They busted us.
Their guess that they had, or their bet. So as you guys have probably seen if you're a listener of Ladies and Tangents, and That's Why We Drink, and That's Why We Drink, Em and Christine have created their own network with Q Code called Parapods. And we have joined the Parapods network. Morgan has on our new logo with them.
Officially Parapod girlies.
And it's so cute. Their logo, they did such a good job with the logo and the name and everything. But that means like we're officially all a big part of a family.
Yeah, so us and That's Why We Drink and Ladies and Tangents, we're all just one big happy motherfucking fam.
One big motherfucking family.
And we're so excited. This has been a long time in the making. Mm-hmm. We're proud of Em and Christine for
so happy
doing
for
it.
them.
They did their big one.
They did the damn thing.
They did it.
And it took years for them to do this. Yeah. So we're really proud of them. And we've been like wanting to talk about it for so long, but today it's going to be released. So make sure you head over to Instagram so you can follow the Parapods Network Instagram. Make sure you like and comment and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, please like the post and be like, oh my God, not all my favorite people in one place.
Yeah, like
that's the shit I want to see.
That's the shit we want to see on there. And go and like follow them, because then you'll be able to see like any upcoming events or like things that are going to go on. There's going to be a lot of cool things coming up that we're going to be doing with the new Parapods fam.
So excited.
That we're so excited about. So anyways, guys, thanks for, liking and commenting and talking and all the things that we know you're doing, because you're good besties.
Yes, you're good besties.
Support
besties. You already did it. You did it before we even told you. You already knew.
You already knew. You were probably sitting there being like, when are they going to fucking talk about it?
I know. Yeah,
but we were going to put it in the intro, and then we were like, well, let's just wait till we get approval that it's for sure going to happen on Thursday. But anyways, so leave it right here. Okay, well.
All right.
Ready for mine?
Yeah, she got a long one.
I do. Buckle in, y'all. Okay, besties. After an hour break, here we are.
She pauses. I just need 5 minutes.
I just need 5 minutes. But then we got to talking. We got to chit-chatting, and here we are. I have a case that I have been wanting to do for a long time. I've stopped and started on several occasions. And I actually thought I had covered it because of, I guess, all the stopping and starting that I have done over the past few years. But this is the case of the DC sniper. It's a bigger case, and you guys typically know, like with bigger cases like this, I tend to take it big and go on forever. But I've really limited myself. There's 19 pages, so the limitations
doesn't exist.
But no, I really did limit myself.
The limit does not exist.
The limit does exist, because I did really make myself be very particular about exactly what I put in here.
Aura's telling me we should stretch our legs.
We should stretch our legs. We got our Aura rings, by the way. We talked about it on Patreon, and you probably saw it on our Instagram stories, talking about it, doing everything but wanting to sit down and work. When me and Morgan were
cackling, I was like, not us both our stories.
We're over there making like questionnaires on our stories, and we just told each other like, hey, if we're not both like sit down and work in the next hour, like we need to keep each other on track. And we're like, okay, anyways, so we get the Aura ring. What do you do about skunk spray? Like, what the fuck? Okay. This is the DC sniper. It's Thursday, October 3rd, 2002 in Montgomery County, Maryland, at the corner of Aspen Hill Road and Connecticut Avenue, which runs in and out of Washington, D.C., connecting it to the suburbs. There sits a mobile gas station positioned in the middle of typical morning rush hour movement. People are popping in and out to fill up their tanks, grab a cup of coffee, or a breakfast bar as they made their way into work that day, most of them heading to D.C. When the clock strikes 8:12 a.m., a woman was filling up her car when she hears a loud popping sound behind her. She turns to see a man who is falling to the ground, standing just feet away from her at the adjacent gas pump, calling out to anyone that could hear him, "I've been shot."
Oh, that's terrifying.
Terrifying. This was 54-year-old Prem Kumar Welkar. He was a part-time taxi driver who was filling up his taxi for the first leg of a very busy day. The woman that was at the adjacent pump from him was not the only witness. There were dozens of people who saw this all play out, all in fear of their lives, scanning around, dropping to the ground, or running inside the store, searching for safety. But here's the thing though, no matter where they looked or what they listened for following this, there was nothing. No cars that seemed to be speeding off, no person running away, yielding a weapon, nothing to make sense of what had just happened. Frantically, 911 calls poured in and police rushed to the scene, and it was a frenzy. Responding to the scene was Major Crimes Homicide Detective Terry Ryan with Montgomery County Police Department. As he and other officers pulled up to the mobile gas station, they threw on their bulletproof vests to protect themselves. They closed off the scene and were able to identify the general direction that they believed the shot was fired from. However, they could not determine anything more than that. A car, a building, a pedestrian, the shopping center across the street, etc. Running the scene was Montgomery County Police Department Sergeant Roger Thompson. He arrived approximately 15 minutes following the initial 911 call that summoned Detective Ryan. Well, as Detective Ryan is briefing him about what they had learned so far, Sergeant Thompson receives a call where he learns that there was a second shooting that took place just seconds prior to him getting this call at 8:37 a.m. in Norbeck, just a few minutes down Connecticut Avenue from the mobile gas station at the Leisure World Shopping Center. 34-year-old Sarah Ramos, a babysitter and housekeeper, had just gotten off the bus and was waiting for the next one, sitting on the bench reading a book quietly to herself in front of a fast food restaurant when she was shot dead, seemingly out of nowhere. This was just a mile or so from where Sergeant Thompson and Detective Ryan were standing at that very moment at that mobile gas station. Thompson jumps into his car so he can properly be briefed in silence about what was going on, while also figuring out who to send to process these scenes, because now they've got two crime scenes and he wants to make sure that his best people are on there, but like you can't split Detective Ryan in half.
Right.
When he gets a second call from another sergeant on the force explaining that he has been working a scene since that morning and was now at the hospital with the victim who unfortunately did not make it. Well, initially this call was for an accident, but the more that the victim was being evaluated by medical professionals at the hospital, the more clear it was becoming that this was actually yet another shooting. You see, at 7:41 a.m., 31 minutes prior to the shooting at the mobile gas station, 39-year-old James L. Buchanan, or Sonny as he was called, was mowing grass as he was a professional landscaper for one of his clients at the Fitzgerald Auto Malls on Rockville Pike in Rockville, Maryland, when he was shot seemingly at random. Now, when it initially happened, they thought his mower had exploded on him and like something had shot out of it and like injured him. They had no idea it was a bullet until they got to the hospital.
Damn.
Meaning they now have 3 shooting victims in less than an hour, all just miles apart from each other with no obvious connections between the 3 of them. And just like in the case of the mobile gas station, there were tons of witnesses that heard the gunfire or explosion in the mower case and saw the victims fall to the ground. However, no one actually saw anything that would get them any closer to finding their alleged shooter. And the chaos at these scenes only grew with every single news truck, helicopter, and reporter that were arriving. People were frantic, especially after learning that these individuals were all shot and killed by a single bullet. Police are frantically trying to work out radio channels that were now being flooded by news, like reporters and journalists and stuff who were popping on their open channels, and meaning that these channels were dropping like flies. So they're having to get on like a secure private channel in the midst of all this. The carriers are like being blown up when they get yet another frantic 911 call in Kensington, Maryland at 9:58 a.m. They had another victim. 25-year-old Lori Ann Lewis Rivera was vacuuming out her Plymouth Grand Voyager at the Shell gas station sitting at the intersection of Connecticut and Knowles Avenues when she, like the others, was fatally shot. Sergeant Thompson sends Detective Ryan to the scene because they had simply run out of people to lead these crime scenes. And once again, it was a frantic scene with no rhyme or reason to it. Well, as Detective Ryan is processing it and shutting everything down, including calling Lori's husband and breaking the tragic news to him as fast as he could before the media would leak it because they're just following them at this point, Sergeant Thompson is rushing back to the office so that he can try and begin to put the pieces together and stop this obvious spree that's going down. But the first thing that they did was place all of the schools on code blue alert, meaning all children were being kept indoors strictly, with extra security being placed around them despite the fact that they believed all schools were safe. Many parents left work and immediately picked up their children, especially at the nearby private schools who had been placed under lockdown because they were the closest to all of these scenes. Once this was all confirmed, Sergeant Thompson began walking through each of the timelines of the shootings, making notes of everything that they knew so far. So 7:41 a.m., a man is shot while mowing grass on Rockville Pike. 8:12 a.m., a man is shot while filling up his taxi's tank at the intersection of Aspen Hill and Connecticut Avenue at a mobile gas station. 8:37 a.m., a woman is shot while sitting on a bus bench reading a book on Connecticut Avenue. At 9:58 a.m., a woman is shot while vacuuming out her car at the intersection of Connecticut and Knowles Avenue at a Shell gas station. And within seconds of sitting down at his desk and writing all of this out, a call gets transferred up to his desk from a night shift nurse at a local hospital with a new tip, which is how they learned that the 7:41 a.m. shooting might have not been the first. According to this nurse, at 6:30 p.m. the night before, so Wednesday, October 2nd, 2002, a 55-year-old man named James Martin was in the parking lot of a Shoppers Food Warehouse grocery store in Wheaton on Randolph Road when he was shot and killed. Just like in the other cases that he was currently sifting through, many people had heard the shots and saw Mr. Martin go down. However, no one knew where the shots came from. Sergeant Thompson is frantically trying to figure out if there was any possible connection at all between these victims. Did they live in the same place? Did they work in the same buildings? Did they go to the same high schools? Did their kids know each other? Anything. But this is going to take days to get all this information together, maybe even weeks to figure it out. So the first and really the only thing that they had to work with at this point being the ballistics, or the single bullets found in each of the victims. The ATF and the FBI come in to assist on the case, thankfully, which I feel like in most cases when we're like the ATF and the FBI jumped in so immediately, people with the original police department get mad, but this police department was like,
no,
thank God, we need bodies. Like, we need people right now, right here, come in. So they were like so thankful about it. The ATF immediately took custody of the projectiles, the bullets, and sent them to the ATF laboratories for testing just a mile or so away from the police station, and personally handed these ballistics directly over to the best forensic examiner at the lab named Walter Dandridge, because they needed their best guy on this, as it was seemingly still actively unfolding and would continue to actively unfold. Dandridge was able to determine that each of the bullets were fired from a rifle and were 223, how do we say it again? 223 caliber Remington projectiles, with each of them imprinted with the exact same markings, meaning that they had all been fired from the same exact weapon. I'm specifically at this point referring to the bullets that have happened on that were shot on Thursday, October 3rd at this point, because I don't believe they had custody of Mr. Martin's remains from the second just yet at this point. But just so you know, all of the shootings that took place on the 3rd, from the mobile gas station to the Shell gas station, were all from the same gun, same exact bullets.
Damn.
It's
like, how is he getting, whoever the shooter is, how are they getting everywhere so quickly?
And you know, it's rush hour too. Yeah. Like I just was saying.
Yeah, all I'm thinking of is DC traffic. Unless you can teleport
rush hour.
Or get in a helicopter.
Now, when Dandridge reported this to the ATF, FBI, and Montgomery County Police Department, it pretty much confirmed what they had all been fearing. This was the doing of a sniper who was firing from more than 50 to 100 feet away. I mean, more than that, like up to 300, honestly, even 1,000 in some cases they possibly believed, away from their victims. This allowed them to alert the detectives at each and every single one of these scenes to expand their search areas significantly to try and identify the location that the sniper photographer was at the time of the shooting, thus allowing them to more accurately search for witnesses. With the first lead they get actually being from a witness nearby the mobile gas station who reportedly saw a white box truck or van, like a Sprinter van kind of, not like what you're thinking like a moving van, because they kept saying white box truck and I'm like, okay, like a U-Haul, that's right,
that's
it out.
what I'm thinking.
But then they were showing pictures of it and it was like a Sprinter van.
Like a Mercedes.
Yeah,
people
like a
that
Mercedes.
turn into a camping ship.
Or like a Ford. Yeah, you know what I mean? Who reportedly saw this van parked across the street, which caught their eyes because of a similar witness account from the shooting of Sarah Ramos at the bus stop bench, who also reported seeing a white box truck or van seemingly speed off from the scene following the gunshots ringing out. This immediately put some pieces together for investigators because one of the main things that almost every single witness from each of these crime scenes had told them was that the shot was so loud that it nearly sounded like an explosion that would ring in the ears of all of those nearby. And if this gun was being fired from the back of a van or a box truck, then it would reverberate, making the sound incredibly loud. And it would also explain why no one was able to actually see the suspect or the gun with their eyes, because it's clearly like hidden somewhere. At this point, it's after 9 p.m. and there had been no more attacks by the suspected sniper since.
Try that again.
Yeah, fuck me. At this point, it's after 9 p.m. and there had been no more attacks by the suspected sniper. By the suspected sniper since 9:58 a.m. at the Shell gas station. But investigators knew it was only a matter of time before they would strike again, especially considering the fact that they now knew about the shooting from the night before at the grocery store. But what they didn't expect, however, was that they would strike again that very same day. At 9:20 p.m., they received yet another 911 call reporting another shooting at Georgia Avenue and Kamia Road in Washington, D.C. This time, the victim was 72-year-old Pascal Charlotte, a retired carpenter who was taking his nightly stroll. This was literally right over the Montgomery County line into D.C., and once again, no one saw anything. They just heard the shots ring out and saw Mr. Charlotte go down. By the next morning, Friday, October 4th, 2002, everyone knew about this crazy shooting spree. It was an absolute media frenzy with the public demanding answers as they were afraid to leave their homes, looking toward investigators for something, anything to give them the reassurance that they needed to know that they were actually getting somewhere in their investigation. So they decided to ask the public for help, asking for anyone that had seen this white box truck or van to come forward. And within seconds, the phones were ringing off their hooks with tips from the community. Investigators had roadblocks set up with officers and agents responding to every single one of these tips and sightings that were called in. But nothing was getting them any closer to finding their suspect. Investigators and their teams were spread thin as they did this, but everyone stopped in their tracks when a 911 call came in just after 2:30 p.m. The caller reported yet another shooting of 43-year-old Caroline Sewell in the parking lot of a Michael's craft store at the Spotsylvania Mall while she was unloading her car into the back of her minivan. And this was the first victim to survive the shooting. But that wasn't the only thing that was dramatically different, because this shooting took place in Virginia, across state lines and the farthest away from the initial hotspot, meaning there were a lot of different jurisdictions involved now. This also played a very large role in changing how investigators thought about the motive. Initially, as we discussed, they were looking for any and all possible connections between their victims in Montgomery County, where they worked, who they knew, where they lived, where they went to school, where their children went to school, etc., etc. But it was now abundantly clear that this shooter or shooters were attacking at complete random, which of course makes it even that much harder to stay one step ahead or even behind them. This shooting also connected yet another shooting that was not originally connected to the case that took place on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2002, the same day that James Martin, who was originally thought to be the first victim of the shooting spree, was shot and killed in the grocery store parking lot. 1 hour and 10 minutes exactly prior to James Martin's shooting, a shot was fired through the window of an Aspen Hills Michael's store that barely missed and Chapman, the cashier working that night. Well, investigators initially believed that this was an accident or just a random shot fired, but no serious alarms were raised initially because of this. This made a total of 8 known shootings, and investigators were working tirelessly to prevent the inevitable next one. However, it was actually peaceful as the weekend passed by. There were no more shootings, victims, or frantic crime scenes, giving investigators some time to catch up. But then the next week began, and after the longest bout of silence and safety yet, a line was crossed and everything about this investigation and case changed. When on Monday, October 7th, 2002, at 8:09 a.m., a 13-year-old boy named Iron Brown was shot in the chest and critically wounded as he arrived at Benjamin Tasker Middle School in Prince George's County, Maryland. Thankfully, the boy survived. However, the shooter sent their first ever crystal clear message. When processing the crime scene, investigators discovered a shell casing as well as a tarot card, the death card. And on it were inscribed messages. The front reading, "Call me God," in quotations. And on the back, on 3 different lines, it read, "For you, Mr. Police, code quote, call me God. Do not release to the press." And despite their best efforts to keep this close to chest, somehow there was a leak. And by the next morning, the card and messages were made public by WUSA-TV and the Washington Post.
As a journalist, though, if it's saying do not
release to the press, hey, get your fucking morals together. How about that? A literal 13-year-old was just shot.
Yeah. Slimy
as fuck. That night, a 24-hour tip line was officially established, and the search for the shooter or shooters became a full-blown community effort that was across multiple states and jurisdictions. It was clear to investigators that this person or persons were preying on the public's biggest fears, and that was that their kids were not safe and would only continue to escalate with each passing day, so they had to work fast, with the public more than willing to help because those tip lines from the second they opened never stopped ringing. It was a firestorm of calls. There were 100 phones and 100 employees that were assigned, one per each phone, from every agency who were adding each and every single one of these tips into a system for processing, at which point ATF Special Agent April Carroll would sift through each of these tips and sort them into what category they were based on priority, based on what she knew in the investigation at that point in time, saying in her interview with Catching Killers on Netflix that the biggest part of this job for her was solely based on instinct. Meanwhile, she was also playing back every single ounce of footage that she could find from every press conference that had been held, crime scene, etc., to see if anyone stood out, knowing that the shooter would more than likely be returning to the scene of the crime or trying to get as close to the investigation as possible, which is when she noticed a person walking up to the podium after the press conference that was held on October 7th after the shooting of 13-year-old Iron Brown and sifting through the papers that were left behind by the chief. And he became their number one suspect just like that. The next day, October 9th, Agent April Carroll was driving into work and she stopped at a red light. She looks over at the car beside her and she sees a man that she recognizes, but she can't exactly place. This was weird for her considering she had literally just 2 weeks before moved to the area with her family, so she knew no one because she had accepted this job with the ATF. Within seconds of looking over at this man, it clicked. This was the man she saw on the footage sifting through the paperwork on the podium the day before.
Oh my God.
She grabs the file that was sitting in her passenger seat and she looks at the picture, confirming that this is 100% her guy. Frantically trying to figure out what her next move should be, knowing that if this is the shooter, he was more than likely armed and dangerous. So she calmly follows his blue Ford truck to a business complex and parks nearby him. He calmly as ever gets out of the truck, enters into this business, giving her enough time to call her supervisor on the task force and request backup. They were able to quickly and safely take this man into custody. However, it was immediately evident that this was not their guy. He was just someone infatuated with following the case, but not the killer, because he wanted to protect his family. That's why he was being so crazy about it. They release him, but only after yet another 911 call came in at 8:18 p.m. that night, reporting that 53-year-old civil engineer Dean Harold Myers had been fatally shot while pumping gas at a Sunoco gas station on Sudley Road in Prince William County, Virginia. This was the 10th known shooting and the 8th life claimed by the sniper. By this point, the shooter had been coined the name DC Sniper or Beltway Murders by the media. People were afraid to leave their homes, all sporting events were canceled, recess was non-existent in schools anymore, and some parents refused to even send their children to school in the first place. It had been a full week at this point of absolute hell. And then at 9:30 a.m. on the morning of October 11th, 53-year-old Kenneth Bridges was shot dead while pumping gas at an Exxon off Interstate 95 near Fredericksburg, Virginia. This is really interesting. I feel like I've talked about this on the podcast before, or at least I have to Morgan, but years ago when Christine covered this case on And That's Why We Drink, who is from Fredericksburg, talked about their experience living in this area at the time of the DC sniper. M's mom had actually been at that Exxon gas station and had pulled out not even 5 minutes before he was shot there. I think what M was saying was that their mom was literally wearing this like pink suit, like a bright ass pink suit, and would have been like, I think was at that fucking pump That's crazy. Yeah, I don't remember the full details of the story. This was so many years ago, but that's just crazy to think about. Like, you literally pull out and then this happens.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And
scary.
Scary, yeah. And 3 days later, it got even more personal than it already was for investigators when they received a frantic call, this time from an investigating agent who had just happened to be in a Home Depot at 9:15 p.m. on Monday, October 14th, when they heard a gunshot ring out. But this time, it was one of their own, not only calling in the report, because 47-year-old FBI intelligence analyst Linda Franklin was leaving the Home Depot when she was shot dead in the covered parking lot of Fairfax County, Virginia. By this point in time, the public was panicked. It was at an all-time high. Gas stations were putting up tarps to hide their customers while people hid behind their cars as they pumped gas, and people felt like they truly could no longer go about their normal lives. However, there was some peace because for 5 whole days, there was silence. No shootings, no victims, no threats, and people wondered if it was maybe finally over. But that wouldn't last long, because at 8 p.m. on Saturday, October 19th, 2002, 37-year-old Jeffrey Hopper and his wife Stephanie were in the parking lot of the Ponderosa Steakhouse in Ashland, Virginia, 90 miles south of Washington, D.C., near I-95, when a shot rang out, and Jeffrey fell to the ground. Thinking quickly, Stephanie applied pressure to his gunshot wound and immediately was screaming out to any person that was driving by to call 911, which would ultimately save her husband's life. God, that makes me...
Yeah.
Investigators descended on the area and shut down the scene immediately, giving medical help to Jeffrey. Stephanie, before leaving in the ambulance with her husband, stopped investigators and told them that she was 100% positive the shot came from this very specific wooded area and pointed out to investigators, which perfectly aligned with the angle in which they believed Jeffrey had been shot at. Using this incredible tip, investigators began searching every square inch of the area when they found something. It was a 4-page letter from the sniper tacked to a tree in a Ziploc bag. And this is what it read on the cover page. "For you, Mr. Police, quote, call me God. Do not release to the press." Then the next page, that is titled page 1, repeats the same thing. "For you, Mr. Police, call me God. Do not release to the press. We have tried to contact you to start negotiation, but the incompetence of your force is in 1. Montgomery, obviously Montgomery Police, quote, Officer Derrick. 2, Rockville Police Department, quote, female officer. Task Force, quote, FBI, quote, female at this number listed, and then parentheses 4 times. 4, priest at Ashland. 5, Washington, D.C. at redacted phone number. These people took our calls for a hoax or joke. So your failure to respond has cost you 5 lives. If stopping the killings is more important than catching us now, then you'll accept our demands, which are non-negotiable. 1, you will place $10 million in the Bank of America account number redacted, PIN number redacted, activation date redacted, expiration date redacted, name redacted, member since redacted, platinum Visa account. You will have unlimited something, because I can't make out what this says, withdrawal at any time worldwide. You will activate the bank account, credit card, and PIN number. We will contact you at Ponderosa Buffet, telephone number redacted, 6 a.m. Sunday morning. You will have until 9 a.m. Monday morning to complete the transaction. Quote, try to catch, quote, us withdrawing and you will have less body bags, end quote. But, in parentheses, 2, if trying to catch us now is more important, then prepare your body bags. If you want our word, that is what takes place, quote, word is bond. And that's referring to a quote that the chief of police had said in a press conference that day. P.S. Your children are not safe anywhere at any time. And that was the letter.
It's fucking terrifying.
That's terrifying.
And let me guess, it leaks.
I think they did I think they let a little of it go. But no, actually, I think they kept it like pretty chilled. But they did say like, all right, they're threatening your kids now. Shut down the fucking schools. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, though, that's just a lot of bullshit. But it does tell police that they have tried to contact them on multiple different channels. And they had literally told them exactly where they called and who they spoke to.
Yeah.
Meaning, all these calls are being recorded, bitch, so we can just go back and listen to it.
Right.
Perfect. So that's exactly what they do, starting with Officer Derek, who worked in their media division. Investigators figure out that the caller had told Officer Derek that they were involved in a shooting, robbery, and murder in Alabama. And the reason that it never was marked as priority was because Officer Derek felt like this was one of the fucking 100 fake bullshit tip calls that they had been getting this entire time. But thankfully, Officer Derek had a line recording and had filled the entire tip up, like on he had wrote it all down. Using what information that they had about this attack in Alabama, investigators reached out to the FBI agents in the field offices in Bama, and they asked them if they had like anything in their system that would mildly align with what the details they had on this alleged crime is. And yes, bitch, they did in Montgomery, Alabama from less than a month prior. Turns out on the evening of September 21st, 2002, 52-year-old Claudine Parker and 24-year-old Kelly Adams were leaving their shift at a local liquor store after closing up for the day, when out of nowhere, a person approached, shot, and robbed them, killing Claudine and severely injuring Kelly. The suspects stole all of their money that they were like taking out of the cash register and fled on foot. But the killer had dropped something, and it was a Shooters magazine. I'm not talking about like a clip. I'm talking about like a legit magazine that's called Shooters. It's like a gun magazine, which like we got to get another word for the clip being called a magazine, because it's like, how are we gonna know if it's actually like a print magazine versus
like an actual newspaper magazine? Or
just so you know, this is a newspaper print magazine that he drops named Shooter. Okay, the dumbass had left his fingerprints all over it, because you know that oily ass page, you touch it gets stuck,
and he probably circled which guns he wanted.
Investigators in Alabama had immediately ran it through the state identification system, but they did not get a hit. Now, upon hearing this, the agents in DC are like, holy shit, send it up to us, we'll run in the national database. And they do, and they get a hit. So we have our guy now. The print came back as a match for a 17-year-old boy named Lee Boyd Malvo, originally from the West Indies, who had been detained and fingerprinted while crossing the border from Canada into the U.S., at which point he was asked who he was with, and he said he was with an older man who had legitimate paperwork and was a U.S. citizen, named John Allen Muhammad, who very quickly became their number one suspect, especially after a quick peek into his past. He had served in the Army under the name John Allen Williams, and his ex-wife had an active restraining order against him to prevent him from seeing their children again, because he had kidnapped them for a significant period of time in the late 90s, early 2000s, in which she listed his original birth name as Williams, and that's how they were able to connect that he had changed his last name to hers when they got married. And they found a car that was registered to him that is currently in the Virginia, Maryland, and DC area. It was a dark blue Chevy Caprice that he had purchased in New Jersey, meaning they officially had a license plate number for him. And after running it, they found that same car had been checked by radio patrol cars several times near the shooting locations in various different jurisdictions. The first one being on October 3rd, the day day of the main spree when police in Washington, D.C. stopped the car due to, quote, a minor traffic infraction 2 hours prior to Pascal Charlotte being shot and killed, the 72-year-old, on his nightly walk.
Wow.
Then again on October 8th, when it was investigated by Baltimore Police Department for being parked near the Jones Fall Expressway with people sleeping inside of it. The officers confirmed that the driver's license was from Washington State while the car was registered to New Jersey, and that was that. They didn't find the occupants to be suspicious or anything to be wrong with them, so they let them go and asked them to move the car from the location that they were parked and sleeping in. But before they could get to Muhammad or Malvo, another shooting took place. At 5:56 a.m. on October 22nd, 2002, 35-year-old Conrad Johnson, a ride-on bus driver, was fatally shot while standing on the sidewalk steps during his break outside of his bus in Aspen Hill. The next night, October 23rd, a federal warrant was released for both Muhammad and Malvo, and just minutes after being released, the car belonging to Muhammad was spotted at a Washington, D.C. rest stop. The call came in from a refrigerator mechanic who was working at the rest stop and spotted the car named Whitney Donahue. Task force and SWAT team were assembled to close in on the area, and the first officer to arrive on the scene was Maryland State Police Trooper First Class D. Wayne Smith in a light blue unmarked car, which he used to block off the exit, parking his car sideways between two parked 18-wheelers or tractor trailers, with other officers following his lead and blocking off all other entrances and exits. They, as carefully as possible, then got as close as they possibly could to try and identify if anyone was inside the car, but they could not tell due to the tint of the windows with the darkness of night. But they had to act soon, so the SWAT team got into position surrounding the car under the cover of the wooded areas that it was parked up against. In this time, a truck driver named Ron Langto was attempting to leave the rest area, and police were like, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop. Because he's sitting there, like, trying to get this unmarked police car to move. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So they immediately could get out. They tell him the situation. They're like, you need to get in our fucking car. You need to lay down in the back seat. And by the way, we're commandeering your tractor trailer. And he said, okay, well, do you want me to move it? And they're like, yeah. And so he blocked off the whole exit with his entire, like, rig and then got out and got into their car. So that way they wouldn't be able to escape. Like, such a classic, like, I can literally, like, fucking move, bitch. I'm trying to get out of here. I got to get to my next spot, next way station at this time.
Oh, hell, I'll get paid for this break. Let me lay down.
Yeah, in fact, you're commandeering it. Let me take a little nap in the back. Yeah. All right. Guys, my uncle and my fucking papa would have loved that. They would have loved to have been a part of that tea. Okay, so they complete the roadblock with Ron's truck, and this was the final thing that they needed to give the SWAT team the all clear to approach. At 3:15 a.m., SWAT moved in with Malvo sleeping in the passenger side front seat and Muhammad sleeping in the driver's seat. They busted through the side windows, ripping the two men out of the car within seconds before they could even fully awake and react, taking them down and arresting them, sitting them in two separate locations with guns drawn on them so they wouldn't attempt to make any moves. The car was swept, where inside they found a stolen Bushmaster XM15 semi-automatic 223 caliber rifle equipped with a Bushnell holographic weapon sight effective at ranges of up to 300 meters, 1,000 feet, and a bipod, which is like a tripod for a gun, all found in the backseat of the car. They also quickly identified a hole that was created in the trunk door of the car right above the license plate that would allow the shooter to crawl into the back and take the shot from the cover of the trunk of the car. And that was that. They had gotten their guys and no one else was hurt. And it was like a weight was lifted off of their shoulders. All of the officers and agents that were interviewed on like any show that were just sobbing at this point. They were like, we just were like, oh my God.
Thank God.
We can breathe again. Like, what the fuck? There was this communal sigh of relief and tears rolling down every single one of their faces as they were just so thankful but still mourning the loss of all the victims. It is theorized that Muhammad was intending to kill his second ex-wife, Mildred Muhammad, who had felt that she had estranged him from their children, and she's like, yeah, 100%, like, he kidnapped them. From me. So I 100% was keeping them from him, using the shootings as a cover up for the motive of the crime, believing that investigators would not look into the ex-husband if they believed that she was just the victim of a random attack serial killer. They came to this conclusion after learning that during the attacks, Muhammad frequented the area that she lived and focused many of his attacks around the areas that she lived and worked and frequented. They also later learned that he had made several earlier threats against her, with Mildred herself saying that she knew that she was his intended target. She now is a domestic violence advocate and author. However, at the 2006 trial of Muhammad, Malvo testified against him, saying that the aim of the killing spree was to kidnap children and extort them for money from the government, at which point they would, quote, set up a camp to train children how to terrorize cities, with the ultimate goal of theirs being to shut things down across the United States, end quote. Literally, I'm like, you thought you were gonna do all that?
I know. Like, take a fucking joke,
just
though.
Honestly, like, why don't
It's
you
embarrassing
just
that you actually thought you could get that far.
breathe? Like, go touch some fucking grass. Like, please. On April 22nd, 2005, Muhammad was sentenced to death, since the murders were a part of an act of terrorism, and a year and a half later, his execution date was set for November 10th, 2009. Muhammad was executed by lethal injection at the Greenville Correction Center in Virginia at 9:11 p.m., with many of his victims' family members in attendance. As for Malvo, he is still serving multiple life sentences at the Keene Mountain Correctional Center in Virginia, a level 4 maximum security prison. And though, as all of you guys are aware, I'm sure, I would of course love to continue the deep dive into these two and like their psychological makeup and like what their real motives were and like the manifestos that they had and like how they even linked up in the first place. But honest to God, it would be a 7-parter, as much as I would love to do that, and maybe I will do it in the future, just like if we want to have like a whole psychology day, because it's really, really interesting how these two even like connected and like got to this point. But this has already been like a really long case. I didn't want to take away from the victims in this, because sometimes when people cover this case, they don't even mention all the victims. So I find it really important to note that the DC sniper attacks and the Montgomery robbery and murders were not his only victim, their only victim. So before I close out, I just wanted to make sure that we said the other victims' names. So we have 21-year-old Kenya Nicole Cook, who was shot and killed by Lee Malvo at the front door of her aunt's home in Tacoma, Washington on February 16th, 2002. Her aunt was a close friend of Muhammad's wife, Mildred, and had been the one to encourage her to get a divorce from him. Then we have 60-year-old Jerry Taylar, who was shot and killed as he practiced chip shots at a golf course in Tucson, Arizona on March 19th, 2002. Muhammad's sister actually lived on the golf course, and he was visiting her at the time and just using him as a target practice. 51-year-old John Gaeta, who was shot in the neck and survived while changing a tire Malvo had slashed in a Hammond, Louisiana parking lot on August 1st, 2002. As he laid on the ground pretending to be dead, Malvo approached him, stole his wallet off of him, and then ran off. The second he ran off, John jumped up, ran inside the store, called 911, was sent to the hospital, and he was checked out of the hospital an hour later. Because that's the most Louisiana shit I ever heard in my entire life. Then we have 55-year-old Paul LaRufa, who was shot 6 times at close range while locking up his Italian pizzeria that he owned in Clinton, Maryland on September 5th, 2002. He miraculously survived the shooting, and his laptop was actually found in the car when Muhammad and Malvo were arrested. And then we have 22-year-old Benny Obrowi, who was shot in the back outside of a liquor store that he worked at in Silver Springs, Maryland on September 14th, 2002 and survived. Muhammad Rashid, who was shot while closing a liquor store in Brandywine, Maryland on September 15th, 2002 and survived. 41-year-old Million A. Waldemariam, who was fatally shot in the head and back with a .22 caliber pistol in Atlanta, Georgia in the early morning hours of September 21st, 2002, as he was helping the owner of a packaging store close up for the night. That was a buddy of his. Then there was Kelly and Claudine from Montgomery, Alabama, 19 hours later from the shooting of Million in Atlanta. And then on September 23rd, 2002, 45-year-old Hong Ballinger was shot in the head and killed with a Bushmaster rifle in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that
So what kind of
case.
fucking deal did Malvo get that he's still alive?
He was technically a minor when all this went down.
Sorry.
And honestly, that's like what I want to talk about. Like if I was able to get into all the details, he was essentially like trafficked and brainwashed by Muhammad. And it's like really weird, the shit that went down and like the fucked upness behind it. But he like admitted everything. He gave over all the manifestos. He admitted everything, but he couldn't get the death sentence because he was a minor, but he's in prison for life. There's no way he's getting that. Yeah, so he's locked up.
Yeah, I would like to hear about that. So
yeah, it'll be a long episode.
Because like right now I have absolutely no remorse. I'm like,
yeah, no, and I don't need. Well, you guys know how I feel. I don't really don't have fucking. I think he was a victim in this in some ways, but like there's a point that you can. But I guess when he's saying like I'm your only ticket to be in the United States and da da da, and you're being brainwashed and groomed by someone, and you're only 17 years old, like, you know, there's a lot more that goes into that. So we will hopefully get into that at a later date, but my primary focus on this was going to be the incredible investigators that were able to fucking put all these pieces together, and then also the victims and making sure that we hit every single one of their names and walk through, because they kind of get lost in the shuffle.
What is the total count on that?
I think the total count is, let me confirm. I have it written down on my notebook downstairs, but it's not here with me. 10 injured and 17 deaths.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Criminal Minds episode on this?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good.
Is it really
was
good?
Like pretty spot on for what you were saying.
Yeah.
But I think they ended up finding him in a park.
In a park. Well, yeah, it's like a rest stop that looks like a park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
this one was like a legit park, I think. But I just remember the mechanics of the license plate, the zzz, and then the thing would come out like in the episode.
Yeah.
And that was
there was
like,
no mechanics in this one. They just drilled a hole into that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his was very
They basically would like put down the back seat so that way, you know, in those like old cars you could climb into the trunk, and like you can still do it in some cars like that today. Like mine though, it was only through the last sedan that I had was only through the
both of my seats come down.
Middle one.
I
Both
could
yours
crawl
come down.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine my old one didn't do that. Only the middle one did. And like I don't think I could have gotten bucket through that.
I definitely couldn't fit if it was my middle seat.
But like that, it folds down completely, and they would crawl to the back where they had it set up on that bipod, and then they would stick it through. And there was like another little corner out to the side that they had that scope on the top. So like the scope was able to, they created a spot for it that went through with the gun, and basically they could just be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
That had to be so fucking terrifying.
So originally they planned to shoot 6 people a day, but they couldn't because of traffic, which is kind of what you were talking about. Like, how are they going to get all those places? That ruined their plan, was the amount of traffic that they were hitting at all times. Yeah.
I feel like if something like that happened today, we wouldn't even know about it. Like, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, while it was happening. I think that would be something that was not
They weren't
publicized.
talking about it. Yeah. Like,
I think it'd be like, oh, shooting. I think people on like the internet would probably piece it together. Like, something's going on here, but I don't think news media would cover it in the way that, because I don't think the police would connect the dots for the media. Yeah. Like confirming wise.
Yeah.
Because it'd be pure.
But I guess when it all happened
panic.
under the first, like in hour 3 to went down.
This is a year after 9/11.
Yeah.
Also.
So
in the heart of the country.
In DC. Yeah. You know, like I feel like if this would have happened in Knoxville, it probably wouldn't have been such a big thing. But also you had all those jurisdictions, and you know how weird jurisdictions are up there. Like,
oh yeah,
you have DC.
What was that one show that we watched where it was like there was a murder in the White House, but it was not FBI's jurisdiction. It wasn't even the CIA's. It was like Washington police.
Yeah.
And so the FBI was it was the investigator girl, the detective.
Oh,
the bird girl.
Yes.
And everyone was all mad that the
Washington police had good one.
The Washington police had jurisdiction, and they're like, someone get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry, FBI, it's not for you.
Damn, I wish we could rewatch that whole show.
I forget what it was called.
That was a great show on Netflix. She'd always be talking about like the birds and everything. And there was a greenhouse.
The Residents.
That's what it was. The Residents.
Yeah.
That's a really good show.
Yeah. That's where I learned about all the jurisdiction shit up there. I'm like, damn.
So dramatic and crazy up there. It really is. Because also you have all the big wigs up there too. So like everyone wants a piece of the pie.
And everyone's got Secret Service, also their own detail that will investigate their own shit.
And it's like, Secret Service, please shut the fuck up, actually. Like, I'm sorry. Y'all aren't good for shit, to be quite honest. So
yeah, sometimes. Sometimes they are.
No, sometimes they are. Most of the time, no.
Yeah.
But in recent years, been going downhill.
Yeah, you've been going downhill.
Yeah, it used to be higher up, but now, like, did you know that Secret Service can literally leave their, like, Find My Friends on?
That's crazy.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend whose family member's in the Secret Service, And they're like, yeah, oh, right now he's in blah, 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 blah. He's on a mission and da, 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 da. I'm like, you think the CIA is walking around with their fucking Find My Friends on?
Maybe.
Well, we'll get to that here in a little bit. In next week's episode, I'll tell you guys about what I learned about our podcast in Oak Ridge.
Oh, yeah.
To be continued.
Right. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.